The massive alien ship appeared over New York without warning. It hung in the air like a giant metal cloud, its surface shining under Earth's sun. People stopped in the streets, cars screeched to a halt, and phones came out to record the moment that changed human history forever. Hours later, the world's leaders gathered in the UN building. They sat in tense silence as the first aliens walked into the room. The beings called themselves the Dominion. They stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in sleek armor that seemed to move like liquid metal. Their leader, Admiral Dawn, looked down at the assembled humans with 4 glowing eyes. "Your species is smaller than we expected," the alien said through a translator device. "We've been watching your broadcasts, your wars, your sports, your military training. We find you lacking." The room burst into angry whispers. The UN Secretary General tried to speak, but Admiral Dawn raised a hand. "Do not worry. We are not here to harm you. We offer you protection, a place in our empire. As a protected species, of course. Your physical limitations make you unsuitable for anything more." In the back of the room, Staff Sergeant James Stone of the United States Marine Corps gripped his chair tightly. He had been invited as part of the military advisory team, and what he heard made his blood boil. 20 years of training Marines had taught him that size meant nothing. Heart, will, and proper training meant everything. "If I may speak," Stone said, standing up. All eyes turned to him. He wasn't tall for a human, just 6 feet, but he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had earned his strength the hard way. "You judge us by what you see, but you don't understand what you're looking at." Admiral Dawn tilted his head. "Explain." "You see us lifting less weight than your species, running slower, but have you seen how we train? How we build ourselves from the ground up? No fancy armor, no enhancement tech, just blood, sweat, and determination." The alien leader made a sound like grinding metal, their version of laughter. "You speak of primitive methods. We have evolved beyond such things." Stone stepped forward. "Then let me show you. Let me take one of your military units through our training. Basic training, what we call light training for our Marines. If they can't handle it, you're right about us. But if they can learn from it." He let the challenge hang in the air. The room went quiet. The alien diplomats whispered among themselves in their clicking language. Admiral Dawn studied Stone with all 4 eyes. "You offer an interesting proposal," the alien leader said, "but why should we waste time on outdated methods? Because right now, your soldiers depend on their tech. What happens when it fails? Our Marines can fight with everything or nothing. That's real strength." The alien leader stepped closer to Stone, towering over him. But Stone didn't step back. He'd faced down drill instructors as a recruit and been one himself. No alien, no matter how tall, could intimidate him now. "Very well," Admiral Dawn said. "You will come to our military academy. You will have 1 standard cycle, what you would call 6 Earth months, to prove your point. But when you fail, your species will accept its proper place in our empire without complaint." Stone nodded. "And when I succeed, you'll recognize that humans aren't just worthy of respect. We have something to teach you." The deal was made. Within a week, Stone found himself on a transport ship heading to the Dominion's Central Military Academy. As Earth disappeared behind him, he thought about all the recruits he'd trained over the years. How many had arrived thinking they couldn't make it, only to discover their true strength. Now he had to do the same thing with aliens who thought themselves superior. They had fancy armor that made them stronger, neural implants that made them faster, and genetic modifications that made them tougher. But they didn't have the one thing that made Marines, the unbreakable spirit that came from overcoming their own limitations. Stone smiled as he looked out at the stars. These aliens were about to learn why humans had survived and thrived on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They were about to learn what light training really meant. And maybe, just maybe, they would learn that true strength doesn't come from technology. It comes from within. The real question wasn't whether humans were worthy of the Dominion. The question was whether the Dominion was ready for what humans could teach them. The Dominion Military Academy stretched across an entire moon, its buildings gleaming under the light of a blue gas giant. Stone stepped off the transport ship, carrying only a small bag with basic supplies. A group of alien officers waited for him, their armor pulsing with different colors. "Welcome to the finest military training facility in the galaxy," said Commander Bright, his armor shifting to a deep purple. "Though I doubt you'll find it up to your primitive standards." The other officers made that grinding metal laugh. Stone just nodded. He'd been a drill instructor long enough to know when someone was trying to get under his skin. "Show me your best class," he said. They led him through halls filled with technology he could barely understand. Holographic training rooms, gravity chambers, and virtual combat simulators lined every corridor. The aliens spoke proudly of their advancement, but Stone noticed something important. Not a single trainee was sweating. They reached an observation deck overlooking a massive training area. Below, 30 alien cadets ran an obstacle course. Their armor helped them jump 20 feet high, climb walls like spiders, and lift massive weights with ease. "Impressive," Stone said, watching carefully. "Now turn off their enhancement tech." Commander Bright's armor flashed red. "That would be pointless. They are warriors of the Dominion. They train with the tools they will use in combat." "Humor me," Stone replied. "Just one cadet. Let's see what they can do without help." After some argument, Commander Bright called up one of the cadets. The young alien, named Runner, stood at attention as his training armor was deactivated. Stone pointed to a simple metal bar hanging from a frame. "Pull yourself up," Stone said, "just using your arms." Runner looked confused but jumped to grab the bar. He tried to pull himself up, his arms shaking with effort. After 3 attempts, he dropped back down, his breathing heavy. "This test is flawed," Commander Bright said. "Our bodies are not built for such inefficient movements." Stone walked to the bar, grabbed it, and did 10 perfect pull-ups. When he dropped down, the room had gone quiet. "Your bodies are stronger than ours," he said, "but you've never learned to use them properly. You depend on your tech so much that you've forgotten your natural strength." He turned to Commander Bright. "Give me your 30 best cadets. No tech, no enhancements. Just them and their bodies. In 6 months, I'll make them stronger than any armor could." "And how will you do this?" Commander Bright asked, his tone mocking. "The same way humans have trained for thousands of years. Running, climbing, lifting, pushing our limits every day. You think it's primitive. I think you're afraid to find out what your bodies can really do." The challenge hung in the air. Finally, Commander Bright's armor shifted to a deep blue. "Very well. You will have your class. But when they break under your barbaric methods, you will admit that humans are not fit to stand among the Dominion's warriors." The next morning, Stone stood before his class. 30 alien cadets, stripped of their armor, looked uncomfortable in simple training clothes. Some were tall and lean, others built like tanks, but all of them looked lost without their tech. "Welcome to Marine Corps Basic Training," Stone said, his voice carrying across the training ground. "You think you're warriors because your armor makes you strong. I'm here to show you that real strength comes from within. It's not about what your tech can do. It's about what you can do." He pointed to a track that circled the training area. 3 miles. No tech. No brakes. "Show me what the mighty Dominion is made of." The cadets looked at each other, uncertain. One stepped forward. Runner, the cadet from yesterday. Without a word, he started running. Slowly, the others followed. Stone watched them struggle with the simple act of running. Some were already breathing hard after the first lap, but none of them quit. He smiled slightly. They had pride. That was good. He could work with pride. "This is just the warm-up," he called out to them. "By the time I'm done with you, you'll do this for fun. You'll learn what your bodies can really do. And then, just maybe, you'll understand why humans never needed enhancement tech to be strong." The real training hadn't even started yet, but Stone could already see it in their eyes, the first glimmer of understanding. They were about to learn what it meant to be truly strong, and it had nothing to do with armor or technology. It was about heart, will, and the determination to push past your limits. Dawn hadn't yet broken over the Academy's training grounds when Stone's voice cut through the quiet. Get up, get up, get up. He walked through the barracks, watching as 30 confused alien cadets stumbled from their sleep pods. Without their tech-enhanced wake-up systems, they were struggling to adjust to natural sleep cycles. You have 5 minutes to be outside and in formation, Stone called out. Every second late means another mile of running for everyone. Runner, who had shown promise yesterday, was first outside. The others followed, some still blinking sleep from their 4 eyes. Stone stood before them, his posture perfect, his face stern. Yesterday was just a test, he said. Today, we find out what you're really made of. Down on the ground. All of you. Show me a proper push-up. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Stone dropped down and demonstrated. Watch carefully. Hands shoulder-width apart, back straight. Lower yourself until your chest touches the ground. Then push back up. Simple. Now you try. The cadets awkwardly copied his position. Some of them, like Runner, managed decent form. Others barely bent their arms before collapsing. Their naturally stronger bodies should have made this easier, but years of relying on tech had left their natural muscles weak. That's pathetic, Stone said, but his voice wasn't cruel. It was matter-of-fact. Again, all of you. We don't stop until everyone does one perfect push-up. An hour later, covered in sweat and shaking with exhaustion, every cadet had managed at least one proper push-up. Stone saw the shock in their eyes. Without their tech, this simple exercise had pushed them to their limits. Good, he said. Now we run. Commander Bright watched from his office window as Stone led his cadets on a 5-mile run. 3 of them threw up. 5 more had to stop and catch their breath. But Stone kept them moving, running alongside them, calling out encouragement and correction. Your bodies are stronger than ours, he shouted as they ran. Your muscles are denser. Your lungs are larger. The only thing holding you back is your mind. Push through it. By mid-morning, the cadets were doing squats, lunges, and more push-ups. Their bodies, unused to this kind of strain, protested every movement. But something was happening. Stone could see it in their eyes. The initial shock and resentment were giving way to determination. During their lunch break, Runner approached Stone. Instructor, he said, his voice tired but steady. Why do we not use the enhancement chambers to speed recovery? Just for an hour. Stone shook his head. The pain you're feeling. The exhaustion. That's your body getting stronger. Real strength isn't given. It's earned. Every ache means you're growing. Every time you want to quit but keep going, you're building something no tech can give you. In the afternoon, Stone introduced them to the obstacle course he had designed. No tech, no safety nets, just raw physical challenges. Walls to climb, ropes to swing on, tunnels to crawl through. Your armor can't help you here, he said. You have to trust your body, learn its limits, then push past them. Commander Bright visited near the end of the day. His armor flickered with surprise as he watched the cadets, still moving, still trying, even after hours of what he considered primitive torture. They haven't quit, he said to Stone. I expected at least half to give up by now. Stone nodded. They're warriors. They just forgot what that really means. Give me 6 months, and I'll show you what they can really do. As the sun set, Stone gathered his exhausted cadets. Their bodies were sore, their clothes soaked with sweat, but their eyes were different now. There was a spark there, an understanding beginning to grow. Today was day 1, he told them. Tomorrow will be harder. The day after, harder still. But each day, you'll get stronger, not because of tech, but because of what's inside you. Remember how you feel right now. Remember that you kept going when every part of you wanted to stop. That's what makes a warrior. The cadets stood straighter despite their exhaustion. They had survived their first real day of training. And though none of them knew it yet, they had taken their first step towards something greater than enhanced armor could ever provide. True strength, earned through sweat and determination. 2 months had passed since the first brutal day of training. The change in Stone's cadets was becoming impossible to ignore. Runner led the morning run, his bare feet pounding the track as he set the pace for the others. No one threw up anymore. No one stopped to catch their breath. Stone watched with hidden pride as his cadets moved through their morning exercises. Their bodies had begun to change, developing natural strength that no armor could match. But the biggest change was in their eyes. They had found something inside themselves that no technology could give them. 100 push-ups. Runner called out, taking charge as the squad leader. The other cadets dropped and began their sets without hesitation. Stone remembered how just weeks ago, a single push-up had seemed impossible to them. Commander Bright appeared beside Stone, his armor shifting between colors as he watched the training. "I must admit," he said, "I did not expect this. They are different." Stone nodded. "Yesterday I had them put their enhancement armor back on for a test. Know what they said? It felt heavy, clumsy. They're learning that their own bodies are more capable than any tech." Across the training ground, the cadets had moved on to the obstacle course. They climbed, jumped, and crawled with a grace that came from countless hours of practice. Their naturally stronger alien bodies, now properly conditioned, could perform feats that even Stone couldn't match. "Watch this," Stone said to Commander Bright. He turned to the cadets. "Runner, show the commander what you learned yesterday." Runner grinned, a human expression the aliens had picked up, and sprinted toward the 20-foot wall. Without any tech, without any assistance, he scaled it in seconds using just his natural strength and skill. At the top, he balanced easily, then backflipped off, landing with perfect form. Commander Bright's armor turned pure white in shock. That's impossible without enhancement tech." "No," Stone corrected him. "That's what happens when you trust your body and push your limits." Runner always had the strength to do that. He just needed to learn how to use it. The demonstration drew a crowd of traditional Dominion cadets, still dependent on their tech. They watched in amazement as Stone's class moved through advanced training exercises without any technological help. Later that day, Stone introduced a new challenge. He paired his cadets against traditionally trained warriors in hand-to-hand combat. The tech-enhanced soldiers had their armor, but Stone's cadets had something better: complete mastery of their own bodies. Runner faced off against a top-ranked combat instructor. The instructor's armor glowed with power as he charged. Runner simply moved, his bare feet finding perfect balance on the mat. When the instructor swung, Runner wasn't there. When the tech-enhanced warrior tried to grapple, he found himself flying through the air, thrown by his own momentum. The match ended with the instructor flat on his back, his advanced armor useless against Runner's superior control and natural strength. The watching crowd fell silent. "This is what I've been trying to teach you," Stone addressed everyone present. "Technology can make you stronger, faster, more powerful. But if you rely on it, you'll never know your true strength." These cadets have learned to use every muscle, every nerve, every bit of natural power their bodies possess. Commander Bright stepped forward, his armor now a deep blue of respect. "The High Command needs to see this. They need to understand what you've accomplished here." Stone shook his head. "They don't need to see it. They need to try it. Real strength isn't something you can watch and understand. It's something you have to earn." As if to prove his point, several traditional cadets approached Stone. They removed their armor, placing it carefully aside. "Teach us," they said. "We want to learn." Stone looked at Runner, who stood tall and proud without any technological enhancement. "Show them where to start," he said. Runner led the new recruits to the track, his voice carrying the same authority Stone had used months ago. 3 miles, he called out. No tech, no brakes. Show me what you're made of. The transformation was spreading. One by one, the Dominion's warriors were discovering what humans had known for thousands of years, that true strength comes from within, not from any technology you can wear. The warning sirens woke everyone in the middle of the night. Red emergency lights flashed through the Academy's corridors as cadets and instructors rushed to their stations. Something had gone terribly wrong in the Academy's power core. Stone ran toward the command center, Runner keeping pace beside him. Commander Bright met them at the entrance, his armor completely dark, a bad sign. The main reactor is unstable, Commander Bright said, his voice tense. The containment field is failing. Worse, the power fluctuations have disabled all enhancement tech across the facility. None of our armor works. None of our lifting equipment works. Stone looked at the display screens. The reactor chamber was 3 levels down, filled with heavy equipment that needed to be manually adjusted to prevent a meltdown. Without working tech, it seemed impossible. How long do we have? Stone asked. 20 minutes before critical failure. The blast would take out half the moon. Commander Bright's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Our emergency teams can't move the control rods without their power suits. They're too heavy. Runner stepped forward. We can do it. My squad can do it. We don't need suits. Stone nodded. He'd been training them for exactly this kind of situation, when technology failed and only raw human-style strength and skill remained. Get your team, he told Runner. 3 minutes later, Stone's cadets assembled outside the reactor chamber. Through the reinforced windows, they could see the massive control rods glowing with dangerous energy. The heat inside would be intense, but they trained in worse conditions. Remember your training, Stone told them. Everything we've done has prepared you for this. You're stronger than any tech. Prove it. Runner led the way into the chamber. The heat hit them like a wall, but they'd learned to push through discomfort. The control rods, each weighing several hundred pounds, needed to be manually inserted into the reactor core. Traditional Dominion soldiers watched in amazement as Stone's cadets moved with perfect coordination. They'd trained together for months, learned to work as one unit. 2 cadets lifted each rod while others guided it into position. Their naturally strong alien bodies, now properly conditioned through months of training, handled weights that would have been impossible for humans. 10 minutes to critical, the voice announced over the speakers. Sweat poured down their bodies as they worked. Runner organized them into teams, rotating people out when the heat became too much. Stone watched with pride as they applied everything they'd learned. Not just strength, but strategy, teamwork, and endurance. In the command center, the traditional Dominion officers watched the screens in disbelief. These cadets, without any technological assistance, were doing what their best-equipped teams couldn't. 7 minutes to critical. The work continued. Some of the cadets' muscles were shaking from effort, but no one quit. They'd learned from Stone that pain was temporary, that their limits were far beyond what they thought possible. 5 minutes to critical. Runner's voice echoed through the chamber, encouraging his team just as Stone had encouraged them during training. Push through it. We're almost there. Show them what real strength is. The last control rod, the heaviest of all, remained. Runner and 3 others positioned themselves around it. Stone could see the strain on their faces as they lifted, but he also saw the determination in their eyes. Months of push-ups, pull-ups, and endless physical training had prepared them for this moment. 2 minutes to critical. With a final surge of effort, they raised the rod and guided it home. The reactor's angry red glow faded to a calm blue. Warning sirens fell silent. In the command center, screens showed reactor containment returning to normal. Stone's cadets emerged from the chamber, exhausted but standing tall. Traditional soldiers who had previously mocked their primitive training now stared in respectful silence. Commander Bright's armor slowly powered back on, but he didn't seem to notice. Without your training, he said to Stone, We would have lost everything. We thought humans were weak because you didn't rely on advanced technology. Now I understand. This kind of strength, this kind of preparation, is far more valuable than any tech. Runner looked at his fellow cadets, pride shining in his eyes. We're not done yet, he said. This was just light training. Wait until they see what else we can do. Stone smiled. The Dominion had finally learned the lesson he'd been trying to teach. True strength isn't found in technology, but in the will to push beyond your limits, in the determination to keep going when everything tells you to stop, and in the courage to face challenges with nothing but your own power. News of the reactor incident spread through the Dominion like wildfire. Within days, the highest-ranking military officials arrived at the academy. They came to see the cadets who had saved the facility without using any enhancement technology. Stone stood at attention as the High Commander of the Dominion forces, a towering figure named Starfire, inspected his training grounds. The simple equipment, pull-up bars, weights, obstacle courses, looked primitive compared to the advanced training facilities elsewhere in the academy. "Show me," Starfire commanded. Runner led the demonstration. Stone's cadets moved through their training routine with fluid grace. They lifted, ran, climbed, and fought with nothing but their natural strength. Even more impressive was their endurance. They could keep going for hours without rest. "Impossible," one of the visiting officers muttered. "Their power readings are higher than enhanced soldiers, but they're using no tech at all." Stone stepped forward. "That's because they've learned to use their bodies properly. Your people are naturally stronger than humans, but you've forgotten how to tap into that strength. You depend on tech so much that you've become weak without it." Starfire raised a hand, silencing the mutters of protest from his staff. "The reactor incident proved your point, Instructor Stone. But this is more than just physical strength, isn't it?" "Yes, sir," Stone replied. "It's about mental toughness, about knowing you can keep going even when everything hurts, about trusting yourself more than your equipment." Runner demonstrated by challenging one of the visiting officers to a sparring match. The officer wore the latest combat armor. Runner wore simple training clothes. The fight lasted less than a minute, ending with the officer on the ground, his advanced armor useless against Runner's superior skill and natural strength. What we witnessed in the reactor chamber wasn't just about moving heavy objects, Commander Bright added. His armor glowed with pride as he spoke about Stone's cadets. They showed leadership, teamwork, and adaptation to crisis, all without relying on neural links or tactical computers. Starfire walked the training grounds, examining everything closely. He stopped at a simple rope hanging from a beam. "In the old stories," he said, "our ancestors could climb mountains without gravity assists. They could run for days without stamina enhancers. We thought those stories were myths." Stone grabbed the rope and climbed it smoothly. "They weren't myths. You just forgot what your bodies could do. But these cadets remember now. And they can teach others." The High Commander made his decision. "Instructor Stone, your training methods will be implemented across all Dominion military academies. Every warrior must learn to be strong without technology before they earn the right to use it." The announcement sent shockwaves through the academy. Traditional instructors protested that it would be too difficult, that casualties would be high. Starfire silenced them with a gesture. "Look at these cadets," he commanded. 3 months ago, they couldn't do a single pull-up. Now they're stronger than our best enhanced warriors. If they can do it, so can others." Runner stepped forward, speaking with the confidence that months of training had built. "We'll help teach them. We know the path because we've walked it. From the first push-up to the final test, we'll show them how to find their true strength." In the days that followed, the academy transformed. Enhancement pods were shut down. Armor was locked away. Cadets who had never known physical exhaustion began their journey into real strength. Stone watched as his original cadets became instructors themselves, teaching others the lessons they had learned. Runner led his own training group, his voice carrying the same authority Stone had used to push them beyond their limits. "This is just the beginning," Stone told Commander Bright as they watched the training. "Wait until they discover what they can really do when they combine this natural strength with their technology. They won't just be stronger, they'll be unstoppable." Commander Bright's armor shifted to a color Stone had never seen before, a deep gold that seemed to pulse with energy. "You've changed everything, Stone. The Dominion called humans weak, but you've shown us a strength we had forgotten existed." Stone smiled as he watched Runner lead his group on their first 3-mile run. "Sometimes the oldest lessons are the most important. Your people just needed someone to remind them of that." The sun set over the academy, but the training grounds remained full of activity, the sound of effort, of determination, of warriors discovering their true potential echoed across the facility. The Dominion was changing, one push-up at a time, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since Stone first arrived at the academy. Today, he stood on a platform overlooking the largest gathering of Dominion military personnel ever assembled. Thousands of warriors, both with and without armor, had come to witness the graduation ceremony of the first class trained in what they now called the human way. Runner stood at the head of the original 30 cadets, his body a testament to their transformation. Behind them stood hundreds more who had joined the program after witnessing their success. Even some of the most traditional Dominion commanders had eventually embraced the new training methods. High Commander Starfire addressed the crowd, his voice carrying across the vast parade ground. 6 months ago, we thought humans were weak because they didn't rely on advanced technology. We were wrong. They weren't weak. They were stronger than we could imagine. They understood something we had forgotten." Stone watched as his first class demonstrated their abilities. They moved through combat drills with perfect precision, their natural strength now enhanced by technology rather than dependent on it. Runner led them through maneuvers that combined raw physical power with the Dominion's advanced combat systems. "Today marks a new era for the Dominion," Starfire continued. "From now on, no warrior will receive enhancement technology until they have mastered their natural abilities. Instructor Stone has taught us that true strength comes from within, and technology should amplify that strength, not replace it." Commander Bright, who had once mocked Stone's methods, now stood proudly beside him. His armor glowed with the deep gold color that had become the symbol of this new training philosophy. "Watch this," he said to Stone, pointing to the demonstration field. Runner and his squad removed their armor. Behind them, a group of traditionally trained warriors kept theirs on. What followed was a display that left the audience in stunned silence. Stone's graduates moved faster, hit harder, and showed more endurance than their enhanced counterparts. When they finally put their armor back on, their power readings broke every record in Dominion history. "Your natural strength combined with our technology," Stone explained to the amazed crowd. "That's the true path to power. Not just relying on one or the other, but mastering both." The ceremony reached its peak as each graduate received a new rank insignia, a design that combined the Dominion's traditional symbols with the Earth's Marine Corps emblem. Runner was the first to receive his, standing tall as Starfire personally pinned it to his chest. 6 months ago, Runner addressed the crowd. "I couldn't do a single pull-up without my armor. Today, I can do hundreds. But more importantly, I learned that the greatest battles are fought within ourselves. Every time we think we've reached our limit, we can go further. Every time we want to quit, we can keep going. That's what humans taught us." Stone felt a surge of pride as he watched his graduates. They had done more than just get stronger. They had changed the entire culture of the Dominion military. Already, other alien species in the galaxy were sending observers to learn these training methods. Admiral Dawn, who had first challenged humans to prove their worth, approached Stone. "We came to Earth looking for servants," he said. "Instead, we found teachers. The Dominion officially recognizes Earth as an equal partner in our alliance, and we request that more of your Marine instructors come to train our forces." Stone looked out at the graduation field, where new recruits were already beginning their training. The sound of running feet and cadence calls filled the air. some in human languages, some in the clicking speech of the Dominion. "You know what the best part is," Stone said to Admiral Dawn. "This is still just light training. Wait until they're ready for the advanced stuff." The Admiral's translator crackled as he laughed. A real laugh, not the grinding metal sound of before. "You humans never cease to amaze us. To think we once called you weak." As the ceremony ended, Stone watched Runner lead a group of new recruits on their first training run. Among them were warriors from a dozen different alien species, all learning to find their true strength the human way. The galaxy was changing, one push-up at a time, and it had started with a simple challenge and a Marine Corps training program. "Remember," Stone called out to the runners as they passed, "pain is temporary, but strength built the human way lasts forever." The cheers of thousands of warriors echoed across the academy grounds, a sound that represented not just physical strength, but the unbreakable spirit that humans had helped them discover within themselves.